told you that Hiruzen did a good job raising Naruto, the majority of you would probably say, no, he didn't. In fact, we have a mountain of evidence to prove that he exactly did not do a good job raising Naruto. Whether it was the promise that Hiruzen made to Naruto's parents on the night of his birth, or he told Minato and Kushina on the day that they died that he would keep an eye on their brand new son, or the fact that Naruto was forced to live alone for the majority of his life, drinking expired milk and eating only cup noodles for sustenance, or the fact that Hiruzen allowed for the entire village to bully the child of the 4th Hokage because the 4th Hokage himself decided to seal half of Kurama on the night of its rampaging across Konoha into his own son. Yeah, we have a lot of evidence to prove that Hiruzen didn't do the greatest job in raising Naruto. But that may only be one side of the story. See, because, well, yes, there are objectively a ton of things that Hiruzen could have done differently in the raising of Naruto that probably would have made his life much easier. Undeniably, there were some decisions made by Hiruzen that might have saved Naruto's life. And by far and away, one of the biggest and most important of those decisions is ironically one of the most talked about talking points surrounding the idea of Hiruzen being such a bad caretaker of Naruto. See, because when Naruto fans sit around and talk about how bad of a father figure Hiruzen was to Naruto, a point will come up that Hiruzen could have very easily just taken Naruto and put him in the Konoha orphanage, a system that we know has existed for as long as Naruto has been an orphan, because Kabuto, another orphan in Konoha, existed in the orphanage system, and he's older than Naruto. And therefore, really, there's no reason that Naruto, an orphan, shouldn't have ended up in the Konoha orphanage alongside Kabuto and Nana Yakushi. And on the surface level, that as a gripe against Hiruzen makes a lot of sense. If you, as the 3rd Hokage, didn't have enough time to take care of the child that you promised the 4th Hokage you would take care of, put him in the system that is built to take care of him. However, there's a problem with the Konoha orphanage, and we know about this problem because of the story of the most prominent orphan from Konoha that went to the Konoha orphanage, Kabuto. And that problem is Danzo. See, when reflecting on Kabuto's backstory as an orphan in Konoha, we as competent Naruto readers have to realize maybe it was best for Naruto not to be in the orphanage system, because if he was, Danzo might have been able to get his hands on him. And Hiruzen may have known this, and thus Hiruzen might have made some good decisions in the raising of Naruto. But can we give Hiruzen that credit? Would Danzo have even been interested in Naruto in the first place? And what would the world have looked like if Naruto had gone to the Konoha orphanage? Well, today we're gonna answer all those questions and more, because today we're talking, what if Naruto joined the Root? But before we get to hypothesizing about this hypothetical future, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. So, before we talk about Naruto's hypothetical future, or whether or not Danzo would have been interested in Naruto if he was in the Konoha orphanage, we have to talk about the evidence that I'm using to substantiate any and all of these ideas, which is Kabuto's backstory. See, for those of you who don't know, Kabuto used to be one of my least favorite characters in all of Naruto, and he's still not super high on my list. However, a couple of years ago, or a couple of months ago, I don't know, I have no concept of time, I did the Kabuto installment of my You Know Nothing series. And it was while I was researching this character that I realized that I underappreciated their story and what they brought to Naruto as a whole. Because really, not until diving into the backstory of who Kabuto is as a character that you realize that Kabuto is more a victim of a system that failed to raise him than anything else. See, Kabuto technically isn't from Konoha. Kabuto was found by Nono Yokoshi, a Jonin from Konoha, in the outskirts of a city destroyed by a battle that occurred during the Third Great Shinobi World War. He had suffered a head injury, so he didn't know whether his parents were alive or really anything about his life, and therefore Nono brought him back to the Konoha orphanage, as Nono assumed that Kabuto, as he was the only person alive in the wreckage of the city, was an orphan. Now Nono, who was a Jonin and an ex-Root member, mind you, stepped away from her operations as a deadly assassin to run the Konoha orphanage. However, she would use her medical ninjutsu specialist as a Kunoichi to gain funding for the Konoha orphanage, as it's not city funded. Yeah, if we think the problem lies with Hiruzen, no, it's generational. However, Kabuto, who had a lot of love for the Konoha orphanage, and Nono Yakushi, made sure to be taught medical ninjutsu by Nono so he could assist her in her medical ninjutsu funding of the Konoha orphanage. However, unfortunately, as time progressed, the money that Nono was making with her medical ninjutsu efforts wasn't truly enough to keep the doors open at the Konoha orphanage. I know a second ago I said that Konoha didn't fund the Konoha orphanage. They do, just not enough, which is why Nono had to supplement the money they got from Konoha with her medical ninjutsu work. Anyways, Danzo was aware of the fact that the Konoha orphanage was struggling and how much it meant to Nono Yakushi, and therefore one day he decided to meander on down to the orphanage as the evil monster monster that he was, and threatened to withhold Konoha's already tiny stipend of money that went to Konoha's orphanage if Nono did not turn over one of the orphans from the orphanage to the root. Now, Kabuto, who was eavesdropping on this conversation and wanted to make sure that the Konoha orphanage kept getting funding, purposely volunteered himself as the recruit to the root, and thus the Konoha orphanage continued to get its funding. However, because of this, Kabuto had to join the root, where he was trained in espionage and assassination. And over the years, he was sent to places like the Hidden Sand, the Hidden Stone, the Hidden Mist, and even the Hidden Cloud to pose as ninjas from those villages and gain intel on what was going on inside of them in this time of relative strife. However, one time while Kabuto was in Iwa, Kabuto was spying as a member of the root when he was cornered by an Iwa shinobi. And Kabuto and this Iwa shinobi engaged in combat that eventually Kabuto came out victorious from. However, upon seeing the face of the Iwa shinobi he cut down, he realized that it was none other than Nono Yakoshi, who was also in Iwa, working for the root. And immediately upon realizing that Kabuto had essentially cut down his own mother, he tried to heal her from the injuries that he gave her. And as he tried to heal these fatal injuries, he apologized to Nono time and time again, but Nono didn't recognize him. And thus, as Nono died as Kabuto tried to heal her, Nono's backup flew onto the scene and Kabuto had to flee out of Iwa until eventually he, in a haze of shock and adrenaline, bumped into Orochimaru, an underling at this time of Danzo, who explained to Kabuto that Danzo had been giving Nono falsified photos of Kabuto to slowly but surely hypnotize her into no longer understanding what Kabuto looked like, all in a ploy to make the two of them eventually bump into each other and kill each other. And why, you ask? Well, because at this time, both Nono and Kabuto were the two most effective and therefore knowledgeable spies in the root. And while being an effective spy and assassin is great and all, once you know too much, you're a liability. And thus this sent Kabuto's identity into a spiral, which made him ripe for the plucking of Orochimaru, who for the third time in Kabuto's life gave him a new backstory to believe in, a new personality, a new allegiance, a new directive. And thus Kabuto, a ninja of great promise, a ninja who was able to out-medical ninjutsu Tsunade as a 15-year-old, a ninja who was able to outperform Orochimaru in things like Edo Tensei, body augmentations, and the discovery of new jutsu, all while, mind you, tricking the Akatsuki into believing that he was a double agent, was essentially molded into the worst possible version of himself because of Danzo. And this is not a unique story in Konoha. We know that Danzo prowled the streets of Konoha looking for children of great promise time and time again. We know that he had a proclivity for recruiting children from the Aburame in the Uchiha because of the great promise that their abilities would later manifest into when it came to the art of assassination. And thus ninjas with incredible promise like Shisui, Itachi, Sai, and Tarune Aburame were recruited into the root in some capacity or another. And in the case of every single one of these ninjas, Danzo's influence led to their eventual breaking point. Danzo steals Shisui's eye and poisons him to the point where Itachi has to cut down Shisui to get his own MS. Danzo pushes Itachi to assassinate his own clan, makes Sai kill his best friend and complete 1,000 assassination missions, and leads Tarune Aburame down a path of evil as Tarune becomes Danzo's right-hand man and lets things like the Rikaiju take over his body and mentality. And the through line with all four of these ninjas who had their lives irreparably damaged by Danzo is that Danzo identified that each of them had promise as a child, and each of them was in a situation that Danzo would be able to pluck them from with ease. So if Naruto was in the Konoha orphanage, would he have been identified as one of these ninjas of great possible promise? Maybe. But then again, maybe not. See, throughout the course of Naruto and Danzo actually have a surprisingly little amount of interaction. In fact, throughout the entirety of Naruto and Danzo never once meet face to face. Yes, they know about each other, especially after Danzo tries to take over as Hokage after Tsunade goes into a coma after the pain invasion, but they never meet. And you have to admit, that's kind of wild. Yes, Danzo is a shadowy, skulking figure, but as somebody who's actively trying to run Konoha from the shadows, going so far as to try to assassinate Hiruzen multiple times, how throughout the course of the entirety of Naruto's life do Danzo and Naruto never meet? Well, you have to, in a sense, assume it's intentional. Because, like I said, it is kind of a coin flip as to whether or not, if Naruto was in the Konoha orphanage, if Danzo would have shown interest in him or not. A lot of the talking points that revolve around Naruto in the early part of his life is that everybody who meets him is drastically unimpressed with it. Every time Orochimaru ever bumps into Naruto, he either tells Jiraiya or Naruto about how uninterested he is in Naruto. Whether Whether this be when Orochimaru was trying to get Tsunade to fix his arms, or when Naruto in his Four Tails form was battling against Orochimaru, the general talking point surrounding Naruto from people who weren't directly related to him was that Naruto was drastically unimpressive until post-time skip. And even post-time skip, people like Orochimaru were still much more interested in Sasuke than they were in Naruto. So maybe, just maybe, if Naruto was in the Konoha orphanage, Danzo wouldn't have identified any talent in him and therefore wouldn't have invested any of his time into him. And as Danzo only really takes time to train those he's genuinely interested in, like Kabuto, Yamato, Shisui, Itachi, so on and so forth, maybe, just maybe, if Naruto was thrown into the Konoha orphanage, he would have been left undisturbed by Danzo. However, I don't think those chances are high. See, because let's for a second assume that Danzo didn't see any talent in Naruto, and therefore as an individual didn't believe that Naruto was worth training to join the route. That doesn't mean that Danzo would have left Naruto alone. Danzo actually very rarely looks at a person as a person. One of the most interesting things about Danzo is that he rather consistently looks at people as a smattering of their most powerful aspects. Danzo was interested in Shisui because of his ability to use the Kodoa Matsukame, Tsurune Aburame because of his ability to use the Rinkaichu, Shino Aburame because of his ability to use the Rinkaichu, and Yamato because of his ability to use wood release. Now Danzo wasn't interested in nurturing these children into full-fledged adults so that he could have them be well-rounded ninja. No, Danzo identified time and time again that these individual aspects would serve him usefully down the line. And there's really no better example of this than how Danzo treated Shin Uchiha, a person who had the ability to have any and all foreign materials grafted onto his body and be able to accept them with 100% acceptance rate. And instead of trying to mold Shin Uchiha into an actual ninja, Danzo instead just decided to take one of his arms. So quite honestly, if Naruto was in the Konoha orphanage, the best possible situation for him would be if Danzo identified his potential as a ninja. Because if Danzo didn't identify Naruto's potential as a ninja, he probably just would have taken the half of Kurama out of Naruto and either given it to somebody he identified to have potential, or just given it to himself. And here's the thing, Danzo wouldn't have been crazy to do this. Danzo had Hashirama's cell grafted onto his Shin Uchiha arm. Danzo, in a lesser aspect than Hashirama, admittedly had wood release. On top of this, Danzo, because of the Hashirama cell, and just because he was a powerful ninja in his own right, had enough chakra to pull off Izanagi close to 17 times. So for all intents and purposes, he actually probably would have been a very good vessel for Kurama's chakra. So if Danzo had identified that Naruto was in a disadvantageous situation, not being watched by people strong enough to stop him from doing whatever he wanted with the child, Danzo would have looked at Naruto like he looked at Shisui, a child with an insane amount of power who he could use better. And thus, just like with Shisui, he would have used his strength as the leader of the root and basically the Shadow Hokage to seize this power from Naruto like he did with Shisui's Kodoa Matsukame. And just like with Shisui, this would have led to Naruto's death. Now, admittedly, if Naruto was in the Konoha orphanage, this is the more likely outcome for his future than Naruto joining the root. Danzo would rather give himself power than train and mold somebody else to use that power. It's why he killed Shisui and the Uchihas. It's why he forced the Akatsuki and the Hidden Rain into conflict with each other. It's why even though he had Yamato in the root, he still grafted Hashirama's cell to his Shin Uchiha arm to get his own version of wood release. However, what if hypothetically Danzo went against his true basal nature and decided to bring Naruto into the fold of the root? Well, the story would be a lot different, I'll tell you that right now. And we kind of have a blueprint for exactly how the story would pan out if Naruto was pulled into something like the root. So we've seen what joining the root at a young age does to a child's mind, with both Kakashi and Sai. In both these circumstances, both Kakashi and Sai slowly but surely lost the perception of who they were as individuals and just became weapons to be used by Danzo and the root. And this is because Danzo is a mastermind at stripping the identity away from people. He masterfully controls the identity of children to turn them into weapons for his disposal. Now, fortunately for Sai, he was able to get out of the situation because Naruto was injected into his life, and Hiruzen was able to pull Kakashi out of the root before he was too far gone. But this is not the way that the story ends for the majority of the people that joined the root, and absolutely wouldn't have been the way that Naruto's story ended. See, the reason that I say that we have a template to understand what would have happened to Naruto if you were to be pulled into the root is because it's basically exactly what happened to Gaara pre-meeting Naruto. Gaara, the Jinchuriki of Shukaku, was born to be the perfect weapon of the Hidden Sand, a project crafted with hatred and malice by his father Rasa, who at every single turn was stripped of any chance of being a child or having any individuality, and was instead raised with the sole intention of making the Hidden Sand a more powerful village. And because of this, any and all individuality that Gaara had leading into the Chunin exams was squashed. As an entity, he was basically a walking nuke. And while the Fuin Jutsu used on Naruto Naruto to seal Kurama away was much stronger than the Fuinjutsu used with Shukaku and Gaara, it's safe to assume, at least to me it is, that Naruto would have simply been trained to accomplish a goal very similar to what Gaara was trying to accomplish in the Chunin exams and to what the Hidden Mist was trying to accomplish with Rin and Isobu. That is to say that Naruto would be built out like a Jinchuriki bomb to be detonated in the center of a different village. Because here's the thing, Danzo wasn't going to train Naruto how to use Kurama's power. He doesn't know how to train Naruto to do that. We've already established that Danzo is more likely to take a power than to train somebody else to use it. And considering the fact that the 8 trigram seal specifically works on the power of love, I'm not making that up, as it's been established time and time again that in order for the 8 trigram seal to work at its highest level of efficiency, that in some way or another you need to inject the love of somebody else into that 8 trigram seal so that love can counteract the hatred of Kurama. If Naruto were cast into the root, a place where no love exists, Kurama's influence over him and the safeguards to stop Naruto from turning into Kurama would be at an all-time low, comparable to what happened to Naruto in his battle against Nagato. And thus, most likely, if Naruto was plucked out of the Konoha orphanage and cast into the root, Danzo would begin to leverage this power and train Naruto in the ways of assassination, with the hopes that Naruto could use the assassination and reconnaissance techniques that he was taught by Naruto to sneak into other villages. And if Naruto was ever put in a situation similar to that of Kabuto, where he's cornered by other ninjas from that village, Naruto could allow Kurama's chakra to boil over inside of him and take over his body as either a version 2 cloak or a full manifestation of Kurama. That would eventually, inevitably lead to the destruction of whatever village Naruto was in. Extend the fact that Danzo identifies powerful assets in the root as people that need to be eliminated because they know too much. This kind of one-time usage of Naruto to destroy an entire village is absolutely something that Danzo would do. So what would have happened to Naruto if he was sent to the Konoha orphanage? Well, if he didn't have Kurama pulled out of him by Danzo at literally the first chance that Danzo got, Danzo instead would have treated him like a grenade and pulled the pin out and thrown it at whatever village he wanted to. As an absolutely massive part of who Naruto is as a character are the multiple mentors that he has along the way to nurture love into his life. Yes, you can 100% say that Naruto was always meant to be the child of prophecy, and therefore in a situation even as dark and dreary as the root, he would have persevered and tried to rule the people that suppressed him for his entire life. But you have to remember, the reason that everybody in Konoha hates Naruto in the first place is Danzo. Danzo purposely unifies the entirety of Konoha against Naruto by telling them all that he's the Jinchuriki of Kurama. But trust me when I say that the ability of Danzo to strip the individuality away from children and turn them into weapons absolutely would have persevered in the battle against Naruto's hope for leading the future of Konoha. And Naruto would have either died with Danzo ripping Kurama out of him or turning into Kurama in another village. There's no scenario where Naruto becomes the world's most deadly Konoha assassin. A dark Naruto like Menma who's able to use KCM2 to assassinate other Kage. No, that would have required substantially too much work, and it also would have required for Naruto to have a going agreement with Kurama based on the foundation of love. Because love and understanding is the only way that Naruto ever achieves KCM2 in the first place. So yeah, it's not a fun what if, but then again, things that have to do with Danzo are rarely fun. But what if Hiruzen knew that this what if was a possibility if Naruto was ever put into the Konoha orphanage system? And therefore the reason that Naruto, unlike any other orphan in Konoha, was put in an apartment by himself is because Hiruzen was trying to avoid this exact situation for Naruto. See, because Naruto being placed in an apartment and most likely being watched by Jonin for the entirety of his upbringing put Naruto in a system that could not be manipulated by Danzo. Now, the logical amongst you are probably saying, but Nick, if Hiruzen knew that Danzo would try to turn Naruto into a living weapon if he ever joined the Konoha orphanage, why wouldn't Hiruzen, I don't know, just kill Danzo? And honestly, fair question. I'm not gonna sit here and try and rationalize all the wrong decisions that Hiruzen made as the third Hokage, but I'll tell you right now, the majority of his wrong decisions revolve around his inability to kill the evil people around him. Whether that be Danzo or Orochimaru or the village elders, Hiruzen just didn't have it in him to take out the people that he thought were close to him. And yeah, so like, could he have made better decisions? 100%. But if somebody ever ponders out loud to you why Naruto never ended up in the Konoha orphanage system, you can either send him this video or say, because if he was in the Konoha orphanage system, he probably would have been at the risk of being abducted by Danzo in one sense or another. But that could also just be copium because as a child, I really liked Hiruzen as a character. So maybe I'm biased, but I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Do you believe there's any reason that Naruto didn't end up in the Konoha orphanage? And if you do you think it had anything to do with Danzo? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Excuse me. It's a new year, and I'm already tired.